In the last week or so, we got the lineups for the TIFF Film Festival, the New York Film Festival, Venice, the International Film Festival, soon to be announced the Telluride Festival. Basically, shit is going down, and the last time I checked, the calendar says it's a new month. The month of August is here. It's time for early Power Rankings predictions, baby! Yes, sir. Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course, and this channel is most known, although I like to think I'm known for some other stuff too, for Oscars predictions, as I've been doing it for a few years now, and I have a pretty good track record, if I do say so myself. So this will be my predictions basically for the month of August, and I'll come back again probably after Labor Day, when some of these festivals will have run at that point, including the Toronto International Film Festival. I'm not going to be attending any of these in person, so I won't have the opportunity to see a lot of these movies unless they are also released theatrically or I somehow get a press invite to them maybe a week or two early. But aside from that, I'm going to be going on word of mouth, reviews that come out about the film, and reactions from people that I know and that I follow that will be at these festivals to kind of update my predictions, but that would be more so for September and beyond. August is tricky because none of those movies are out yet. In fact, as we're sitting here right now, the only films that have been released wide that multiple people have seen to have a baseline gauge for how they're going to do during award season is, of course, Sinners from Warner Brothers and Ryan Coogler. But aside from that one, I literally have 0 additional films in my top 20 currently that have been released and have been seen by a lot of people, with the exception of maybe test screenings or possible festival premiere. There's a couple of those in here that we have some reactions to from South by Southwest or Sundance, for example. Now, real quick, if this is your first time to the channel and you are also addicted to award season and the Academy Awards, make sure you subscribe. I recently crossed 4,000 subscribers. You guys are the best, because going back to last award season, I was only around 2,000 or 2,500 or so at the end of award season. So I've almost doubled my subscriber count in the last 6 months, which is amazing. I've got members of the channel. You guys are just, I'm literally baffled that you guys want to listen to me talk about movies and award season. But if it's your thing and if you also follow it, make sure you subscribe real quick, because I'm trying to reach 5,000 or more by next award season by the end of this year. And I think we can do it because, like I said, the growth is on the up and up, as they say. So on these videos, as top of the line categories, you're going to get predictions from me up until November. Best Picture, the 4 acting categories, and Best Director. So those 6 categories I really hone in on until we get to November, mid to Thanksgiving era, kind of November. And then I'll start to throw in screenplay and some technical categories. And then I'll really be diving in the rest of the season, November, December, January, until the nominations come out. Let's get into our top of the line predictions for August, and not a ton of changes. Let's bring up Best Picture here. Right now, I think I have to leave Sinners at number 1, if for no other reason, because like I said, it's the only movie that even multiple people have seen. There's been reviews. It's already out on Blu-ray. It's on HBO Max. They call it HBO Max. What is the fuck is it called now? Whatever the HBO service is. So that's going to be my number 1, at least until we get some other releases, which aside from maybe 1 or 2 of these is not really going to happen until October or later. So this is going to be a very top-heavy year, 2025. I can already tell you, because we're into August and nothing has come out with the exception of Sinners that's awards friendly, which is rare. Number 2 is going to be Sentimental Value. In my heart, I think Sentimental Value is my number 1. However, not having seen it, we're going off of the success that it had at Cannes, at the film festival there, and it got a lot of great accolades from a lot of people that I respect and trust. It also is Neon Studios, which is proven just last year with Anora, but they've proven more times than once that they can push a film if they really grab hold of it and they rally behind it. And I think their major play this award season, if they're smart, frankly, based on word of mouth, is going to be Sentimental Value. You also have top tier other categories that film is ranking in, whether that's actress for Renate Razva, even some of the supporting players like Elle Fanning, Stellan Skarsgård on the actor supporting side, director for Joachim Trier. This duo of Trier and Razva is very well respected and often thought that they were snubbed for the worst person in the world a few years ago, which I firmly believe was the case as well. So that's going to be lurking around in the minds of the Academy for sure. And looking at the trailer, which is all I've seen so far, and a couple early scenes they released, but you get the gist from the trailer too, this is going to be a hefty film. There's going to be a lot of emotion to it. It's got the international aspect to it, so it's going to bring in a lot of the international voting body, you would think. You see the legend on the screen there. I haven't messed with the top three. My number three is also firmly Wicked for Good. Another one where we've really only seen the trailer. It comes out in November, prime time, holiday season for the award season as well. You know, the first movie hit 10 nominations, basically all the top of the line categories with the exception of director, which I think is in play this year for John M. Chu as well. We'll get there in a moment. But in seeing the trailer, this is a hunch, but when I saw it, I thought to myself, that looks visually and maybe even story-wise better than part one. Now, of course, I'm only going on a 2.5-minute trailer, so it's really hard to say if it will be better than part one was or, more well-received, but I think it will. And that's the purposes of these predictions and kind of having that crystal ball that you're trying to figure it all out. Now, are a lot of people going to have Wicked for Good at number three? Probably not. I just don't have a reason to drop it down yet. Like I said, August is weird because I don't usually have a ton of changes in the month of August because nothing really happens in July, early August that would make me change it, with the exception of the announcements of what films are going to be playing at those festivals I mentioned in my cold open. Jay Kelly, actually a trailer I believe was announced is coming out tomorrow, so I'm not going to see it before I give my commentary here, but I bumped it up a couple spots. I am, again, using my kind of hunch mentality that Jay Kelly is going to be a marriage story type of film for Noah Baumbach. I think he's going to be in the mix for director. Whether or not he'll be in the five remains to be seen. I think he will absolutely 1,000% be in the mix for original screenplay for this movie. And then you have some actors that are adored by the Academy like Laura Dern and George Clooney, who I also think they're going to be in play in their respective categories. Adam Sandler has never been nominated, but I have him ranked very highly in supporting actor. I'll show you in a moment. But I just think Jay Kelly, again, based on who's involved, it just sounds like this is going to get a lot of stuff. This is going to be like The Descendants from Alexander Payne, or I mentioned Marriage Story. It's going to be that kind of like familial, dramatic, but kind of a little bit of comedy in there as well. Let's talk about one battle after another. Guys, on this video and in all my previous videos I've been doing since May, so May, June, July, so this is August, this is the fourth official predictions video and updates I've given. I've been championing one battle after another. It was my number one for those first couple videos. We got the lineup for TIFF and the New York Film Festival. One battle after another is not in competition, and it's also not screening. Now, there have been some test screenings that I've gotten a hold of, and I've seen the results of those. They're all positive. In fact, I've only seen a handful, but I personally have not seen one negative review about this film. They do say it's a little more comedic and action-packed than your typical PTA films. I've a little less on the drama, kind of melodrama front from PTA, which you would think like There Will Be Blood and those types of films, Phantom Thread. But it's PTA, it's Paul Thomas Anderson, and you have Leonardo DiCaprio, who is one of the more celebrated actors of his generation, a previous Oscar winner and a multiple nominee. And also, he shows up in Oscar-nominated films more times than he does anything else. I mean, basically every time Leo's in a movie, it gets nominated for Best Picture, even if he's not. I'm just going to stand behind this film until it is released. The fact that it's not premiering at the film festivals, any of them, gives me pause. And it dropped down another spot. So what I can see happening, and I'm being transparent with you guys, is I try to make predictions in the moment and not like future predictions. So a lot of people are saying not going to get nominated or PTA for director or whatever it is because of this is going to happen, because WB is going to bury it and they don't want it to make a ton of money because they spent too much money on it. So they don't want PTA, to get that check for $150 million. And then, the next R-Tour director can come in here and ask for $150 million from a big studio or from Warner's. A lot of people are saying that. Obviously, that's all hypothetical. Unless they know somebody that works in the offices at Warner Brothers, they don't know that. Now, I understand the commentary. I don't know any of the shit I'm telling you guys either. So I understand that we're having a conversation and we're kind of trying to figure out where this stuff is going to land. Telluride has not announced their lineup yet, and I will say that One Battle, or PTA more so, does kind of lend to Telluride's lineup a little bit more in my mind than some of these other like broader international film festivals. But it's not a good sign. And like I was saying, in full transparency, what I'm seeing happening in my mind, which is to my predictions in these videos, is that One Battle is slipping, because it was number one for a couple months. Then I dropped it down to 4 on the last month's video. Now it's 5. And you'll see when we get into some of the other categories, that's a bit of a domino effect, a trickle down, where that's happening with a lot of the players in that film. I don't want that to be the case, but the reason it's dropping down is not because of anything that's necessarily happened. It's because my confidence in it is waning because there's not enough kind of security to really make me feel really, really good about it, like some of the ones above it. Like the 4 above it, I feel much better about receiving a nomination than One Battle, even though I think it will. All right, so after my soapbox for One Battle, I'll jump from one soapbox to another. I have also been on board with Hamnet, which is the new Chloe Zhao film that's a period piece taking place during the Shakespeare era, but it's based on a true story. It's not based on a Shakespeare play or anything like that. Paul Mescal, and I think a supporting role, plays William Shakespeare, and Jessie Buckley plays his wife. They lose a child, which is a real thing that happened in real life. So in these stills that we've seen from Hamnet, which right away says costume design to me, it says production design, it says hair and makeup, it says maybe stuff like score. You know, it's got a lot of technical stuff just from the stills that you could at least on a believable plane go, yeah, that's going to get nominated for a lot of shit below the line. So then you look at Chloe Zhao, who is the last female director to win Best Director. She's leaving that genre, superhero genre with Eternals and that. She's coming back to do something a little more auteur here. And it's a period piece setting. You know, the Academy loves those Renaissance ball gowns, like pinkies out while you're sipping tea, like all that shit. Like I do too, so I'm not talking negative about it. It's just the truth. They love that kind of stuff, those period piece films. So I think Hamnet on paper is a home run in terms of Academy nominations. When it comes to wins, I mean, who knows? But I think it should get 5, 6, 7 nominations based on the type of film it is and who's involved. The problem is we haven't seen anything, okay, except for a few of those stills on the set, like I mentioned. However, it did get announced to be shown at both of the major film festivals that are coming up in the coming months, which is Venice and TIFF. I believe it's at both of those. I know it's at least one. So that's a good sign. They're going to get it out there on the festival circuit, which I don't think they would be doing that if Focus Features was like, I don't know. I saw this thing and I don't know about it. Like, I feel like they do feel confident with it enough to get it out to the festival crowd to start to get the buzz going for that film. Avatar Fire and Ash continues to drop down. I kind of like what I said with One Battle. We did get the trailer for that one a couple weeks ago, and it looks phenomenal. I mean, you can already give it a visual effects Oscar, I would imagine. I don't see anything else coming along to kind of take that award from James Cameron. So it's already going to be an Oscar movie. It's already going to be in the rotation at the Academy, on the portal, etc., because of the visual effects and kind of the awe-inspiring visuals that you're going to see there. I mean, you know, this is JC. This is James Cameron. So like I've said in previous videos when it comes to Fire and Ash, I'm not a huge Avatar guy. Like, I like them, but I'm not like, let's give them Oscars necessarily. I mean, visual effects, of course, but not, you know, other stuff. I'm okay if it doesn't get nominated for anything, honestly. But I'm never going to bet against James Cameron, because he shows up when he has something going on. He's in the conversation, and I just feel confident that he's at least going to be looked at from multiple Academy members to give him a shot here. And it's going to be such a beautiful, unbelievable film visually that they might be like, oh my God, like, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. We've got to nominate this guy. And I don't think it stands a chance to win, but I do have it in the 10 right now. And then no changes. I'll just touch on those last 3 that round out my 10 real quick before you look at the near misses. Ballad of a Small Player from Netflix is the Edward Berger directed film that stars Colin Farrell. Another one where we're supposed to be getting a trailer soon. We didn't see anything at To Doom, which was the Netflix like announcements for what's coming up in the next year, which I thought was strange. We did get a few stills recently. Colin Farrell looks fucking awesome. I think he's going to be in the mix for Best Actor. I feel good about this one being on the festival circuit also, and it being Edward Berger. You know, I mentioned on previous videos, I don't feel super confident about it, but based on the small sample size that we have, with the exception of director, Edward Berger's films show up across the board at the Academy Awards on Oscars night. He gets nominated everywhere. I think Conclave got 8, maybe even 10. I can't remember. I think it was 8 nominations last year. And then, of course, All Quiet on the Western Front as well. So he's on a run in terms of his movies. Now, why they keep snubbing him for director, I'm not exactly sure, because the films are flawlessly directed also. Also, just so everybody knows, I didn't put more than 2 nominees per studio in my 10 for picture, because that's more realistic. Now, could a studio get 3 or even 4? Yes, of course, but it is rare and it's not likely. So in that, just so you guys know, some of the misses, I kind of got into my head with that. But that's why movies like Frankenstein are not in my 10 yet, because right now I have Ballad of a Small Player and Jay Kelly being the 2 Netflix properties that are going to get the push. The last 2 there, Deliver Me From Nowhere is my music biopic representation. We got that trailer since I did my last predictions, and Jeremy Allen White is going to get nominated. He looks great as Bruce Springsteen. I hate the title change. I didn't even put it on my card here because I hate it so much. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere is so stupid. It makes it sound like a documentary. I don't know if that's locked in or they're going to keep that, but I hope they get rid of it before the movie comes out. Because you don't need, Bob Dylan, A Complete Unknown. You didn't need that. But the Academy, it comes down to this, really. The Academy loves a music biopic. They fucking love that stuff. So this looks like possibly a little more like A Complete Unknown, which was wildly successful. It got 10 nominations also last year. But it looks like that snapshot era from a career as opposed to covering the life of an artist. I've got it at number 9. And then It Was Just an Accident is the Palme winner from Cannes, and it's distributed by Neon Studios. It also was announced that that film's going to be making a tour of the circuit as well on the festivals. So that tells me that Neon is still in on this movie. It has a very juicy narrative for the director, Jafar Panahi, the Iranian filmmaker who was basically cast out by his country for making these movies. And he continues to do his art and to put the movies out there and to be embraced by an institution like the Cannes Film Festival is one thing, but then to come along and be embraced by the Academy Awards would be like a worldwide news story. So that's a pretty important nomination too, I think. And I think if he's going to get into director, the movie needs to get into picture. And I have both of those happening right now. But the fact that it's the Palme winner and being distributed by Neon Studios, there's only one time in the last 7 years that combo has not been nominated for Best Picture. So there you go. All right, real quick, let's look at my 11 through 20 for picture. These are the near misses. When we get to the other categories, you'll get 5 near misses, so 10 in total. Number 11 is Rental Family from Searchlight. This is moving up pretty rapidly, to be honest, because a lot of the word of mouth I've been hearing from it, and it has that international flair to it, which kind of reminds me of the accolades I was giving Sentimental Value earlier. It could be in the same boat, and it could be the big push from Searchlight. Frankly, in my mind, what I see happening, which I gotta be honest with you, I kind of hope doesn't happen, but I see 2-3 months from now, one battle after another being gone, and Rental Family being in the 10. It just does sound very Oscar baity to me, and I don't know what's going to suffer from the ones I had on the previous slide, but Rental Family stars Brendan Fraser, who is a recent Oscar winner for The Whale. It's right outside because I'm hanging on to movies like Hamnet and One Battle until we get a little more feedback. So this is going to probably look completely different next month. But right now it is my first near miss at number 11. After The Hunt, I moved up a couple spots too, or one spot, from Luca Guadagnino. That's the Amazon MGM film that we got the trailer for a couple weeks ago. A lot of folks have After the Hunt and a lot of stuff for that movie in their 10 or 5 respectively. I'm not ready yet. And that's unfortunate because I hope they are right. I hope I'm wrong. But Luca Guadagnino is one of my favorite filmmakers. He's on an absolute tear in terms of a run with films. He's making nothing but bangers. I mean, everything the dude makes is in my top 10 of the year every time he puts a movie out. But the Academy, for whatever reason, since 2017, I think it was, for Call Me By Your Name, has not recognized him. And I'm talking about for anything. I'm not just talking about for picture. They just act like he doesn't exist. Even last year, Daniel Craig was in the front runner to be in the 5 for lead actor up until a couple weeks before the Oscars, and he didn't make it. He ended up getting snubbed there, or a lot of people would call it a snub. So nothing for Queer last year, nothing for Challengers, which baffled me as that was one of my favorite movies of the decade so far. And in seeing the trailer, I thought it looked really good, and I can't wait to see it. It looks juicy, but it also doesn't scream Oscar drama to me. It screams more kind of seductive thriller, almost like a Fatal Attraction vibe, like a love triangle, kind of weird, scandalous college scandal thing. It looks great, but I don't know. It just doesn't have that Oscar where I was like, oh, that's a player, except for the performances. And we'll get there in a second because, whether it's Timothée Chalamet or Daniel Craig up until the last minute last year, the performances in Lucasfilm are usually taken at face value for what they are. And then on top of that, you're going to have a lot of kind of actors with great lineage with the Academy. We'll get there in a second. But I've just got After the Hunt in a holding pattern. I really do, just because I'm not confident with the Academy embracing Luca Guadagnino yet. So we'll see what the results are from the film festivals when it makes its run there. And of course, critical reception and public release as well will help. Marty Supreme and Begonia, I moved down a couple spots each there. I think one spot each, to make room for Rental Family and After the Hunt. They just kind of switched there. Not a lot of commentaries changed in my mind. If you saw my video last month, Marty Supreme for me sounds like a Oscar player. Comes out on Christmas Day. It's one of the Safdie brothers. Timothy Chalamet, I think, is obviously going to be in the mix for acting. You know, as a Safdie, the Safdies haven't proven themselves either. Much like I said with Luca. I mean, the Oscars haven't embraced the Safdies, and that's when they were together as a duo. You know, so now he's going to go out on his own. Not to mention his brother is also in the Smashing Machine, which could be a bit of competition come award season. But he's going to go out on his own, and now they're going to embrace him. Like, I'm not saying they won't. I just don't know what would make me think that until I see the project. And of course, I'm not going to see it till the end of the year. A24 is the studio for that one. And the only reason that I think I might be wrong here and that Marty Supreme might end up in the 10 is because I don't have an A24 movie really getting any love this season. And I do think they're going to have a player in the mix. It's probably going to be Marty Supreme. And that's probably why they're holding it for that Christmas release. Begonia is Yorgos Lanthimos. I bumped that down from last month at number 12 to 14. The trailer looked really good. I'm really into it. I think it looks great. I just don't know if it's Poor Things the favorite kind of Yorgos. It still looks a little more like the weird, kind of out there, left field Yorgos. I'm thinking of The Lobster or Kinds of Kindness. Like, it just doesn't feel like that prestige, grand cinematography, wide shots, scoping landscapes that we got in those previous films I mentioned that he did get a lot of Oscar love for. The narrative in Poor Things is obviously super strange and kind of in the sci-fi realm, which is similar to Begonia. So narratively and story-wise, I see it. And that's why I would think things like screenplay or maybe even director would be in the mix. But for movie, I think we need something a little more period-esque setting like The Favorite, or even really in the case of Poor Things, even though it was kind of a fictionalized period piece. And then a couple others that I've got in the mix. You see Frankenstein there from Guillermo del Toro. I do think that's going to be a huge technical player. I've told you already that I have my 2 Netflix players in the 10, so that's why GDT's Frankenstein is missing. I see some people are bumping it up into their 10, and it did get announced it's going to be competing at some of the film festivals, which makes me really excited. So come next month, it could be in my 10 if the reception's just off the charts for it. You know, seeing the trailer, I think it looked great, and I'm literally can't wait to see it. I'll be first in line to see it if Netflix puts it anywhere that has a line. But you always have to like tread lightly when it comes to like a horror-centric story, which of course Frankenstein is one of the classic horror stories. So we'll just wait and see. The Secret Agent is the Brazilian film that also got a lot of accolades at the Cannes Film Festival, and it's being distributed by Neon. I think Wagner Moura is going to be a huge player for actor in that film, and that film is also showing up on the festival circuit on some of the lineups, which makes me really excited, which is why I'm kind of leaving it where it is. Same thing with Frankenstein. Neon's got 2 players in the 10 right now. If they abandon, it was just an accident, let's just say. But if the Secret Agent like blows everybody away and they won't shut up about it, and it was just an accident, it's just kind of like, yeah, it was good, then we could see a flip-flop situation. But as it stands, I'm leaving it kind of where it is in a wait-and-see pattern. House of Dynamite is the new Catherine Bigelow. Netflix has too much stuff. That's really what this comes down to. They have too much on their plate. I'm only picking 2 to put in that 10, like I've told you. So there's no way I can put House of Dynamite. I don't even think it's as strong as Frankenstein in terms of like possibility to be nominated. It is Catherine Bigelow, who was the first female director to win. So a lot of lineage there as well. And it could be very reminiscent of that film, The Hurt Locker, or even Zero Dark 30. Or it could fall more on just like the Netflix action movie. You know, it's just a Netflix action movie with a really, really good director and a really good cast. It could be that, where it's not Oscar-y, but it's a fucking entertaining film. I dropped Die My Love all the way down to 20. That one is probably going to vanish from the lineup, although Mubi really impressed me last season with The Substance and their push for that film, which was a gross body horror, probably the most grotesque thing that a lot of Academy members had seen in their life up until that point. And they got nominated for a ton of shit, including Best Picture. So that was crazy. So I do think Mubi could get behind the best performance of Jennifer Lawrence's career, is what I'm hearing. It's kind of a psychological thriller around motherhood and postpartum. So the story would lend to being Oscar worthy, but it's Lynn Ramsey, who, much like Luca, I said earlier, they just don't like her stuff. They just don't pay attention to it. And it doesn't show up very often at the Academy Awards. So I dropped it down to 20, but I really have higher hopes for that movie. And I hope Mubi does push it hard and gets it out there before the end of the year, but we'll have to wait and see. The 2 new ones that I've recently just added to the 20 here are The Testament of Ann Lee and Hedda. Testament of Ann Lee is the Mona Fastfold film that was co-written with her husband, Brady Corbet. So that's the Brutalist combo. They also wrote The Brutalist together, and of course that received a ton of nominations last award season and won some pretty big ones also. So I think that with Mona Fastfold in the director's chair, having a female perspective with the same writing team and having what I think is going to be a killer performance from Amanda Seyfried, we could be looking at a very prestigious period piece setting, like I said earlier, their shit, very similar to Hamnet, where it like just looks like it was made for the Academy. So that could be the case. Now the problem is, and this happened, and by the way, Rivals of Uzziah King was one of the films that dropped out here. It was in my predictions last month and it's not. And the same thing can be said for Ann Lee here, is that my pause is the distributor. Because A, it doesn't have one yet. Now it's going to get one because it's showing at, I think, 2 out of the 3 major film festivals this month and next month. So it's most likely going to come out of the festivals with the distributor. The second red flag is, who's the distributor? Who is it? Who picks it up? In looking at this, I already mentioned A24 really doesn't have anything except Marty Supreme this award season. So does A24 get it? If they get it, we're talking like shoots up through the roof in terms of its likelihood to be nominated. You know, I just mentioned Mubi. Is Die My Love too weird, too niche, too horror to be nominated? If so, and Mubi gets it, then maybe Mubi pushes Ann Lee. You know, it just comes down to, and there's other studios you could throw in the mix here. You know, Sony Pictures Classics is a good push for award season, and they don't have anything in my 20 right now. So that would be another good one to get it. Searchlight would be a good one. Of course, they have Rental Family, but what if that goes nowhere? So it's going to depend. If Netflix gets it, if Neon gets it, even if Focus gets it with Hamnet and Begonia, any of those studios get it, I don't think it really goes very far. And the last one I'll mention on this Best Picture slide is from Amazon, and that's Hedda. That's a previous iteration that also received nominations for awards. So it's a story that's going to be probably well known, especially amongst the older Academy voters. It's going to have that international flair to it, which I told you is a big push. It just feels international, and it feels like it would bring in kind of a different perspective in the American POV. Tessa Thompson looks great in it. We've also gotten some stills from that one, and it looks very great for costumes, makeup, everything I said before about Hamnet. It kind of feels the same to me. Same thing with Ann Lee. So they're all in kind of that same kind of sub-bucket of those films that just look Oscar-y when you see pictures of them or see the trailer. I haven't seen the trailer for Hedda yet, but I do know that one is also being premiered at film festivals in the coming month. So stay tuned. That one could bump up as well. Just put it into my top 20 there at number 19. All right, so the Best Picture category usually takes up the most time on this video. So now let's run through some of the acting categories. We'll start with lead actress, and I'll just kind of run through these because I've talked about pretty much every movie that's going to come up here. Julia Roberts, Renate Ransva, and Jennifer Lawrence is my top 3. Now, Julia Roberts, I don't think I need to explain. Same thing with Renate Ransva. I think those are the top 2. It just depends on, is Julia your 1 or your 2 or whatever. After the Hunt is going to be more performance heavy. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think it's going to get a lot outside of performances with the exception of maybe screenplay. And then Jennifer Lawrence, I think it's probably at the end of the day going to end up being the sole nomination for Die My Love. That's in my mind what's happening right now. I've heard coming out of Cannes, and we'll see if that trend continues in terms of the critical acclaim for Jennifer Lawrence. I heard that it was the best performance of her career, and from multiple people, by the way. And I will just tell you that she has already won an Oscar. So if this performance is better than that one, you see what I'm getting at here? I'm using logistics, and also just that Jennifer Lawrence has been another actor, kind of like Julia Roberts, that's been absent from the Oscars discussion for a decade, really, since Joy. Now, Julia Roberts is even longer out of the game in terms of Oscar chatter, but nonetheless, those two to have back in the 5 would be a lot of word of mouth for the Academy if they were able to make that happen. And then I think Renate Ransva is the 2 for sentimental value. She was snubbed for worst person in the world, period. I don't know if it's because she wasn't well known enough at the time, or it was an international film, or I don't know, but it was literally baffling to me that she did not receive a nomination for that film. And I think the Academy knows that. And they see how good she's been since then, and most likely will be in sentimental value also. So I've got her in. That 3 really is not going to change for me until maybe after these festivals and the premieres and stuff like that. Amanda Seyfried, you know, I mentioned her earlier. I'm kind of upset with myself, and I almost changed this slide, but I didn't. And you'll find out on the next one when we see the near misses. But I've had Jessie Buckley for Hamnet in my 5 the whole time since May when I did the first one. I switched her with Amanda Seyfried here. I think that Amanda Seyfried and Jessie Buckley are both previous nominees. Amanda has received a nomination for Mank, which was a movie I did not like. I did like her performance in it, but I just don't think that was a project that received, deserved a ton of accolades, which for some reason it got that year. It was a well-made film, but it was just, not my cup of tea. And I love Fincher, so that's sad to say. I just think that this is going to be 10 times better than that performance-wise. And also, the word of mouth right now as I'm sitting here is definitely stronger for Ann Lee than it is for Hamnet. I don't necessarily know why, but basically, of these 5, I'm leaving Cynthia Erivo at 5 also for Wicked for Good, because I just don't know until Wicked comes out. I don't know if Ariana and Cynthia and even Jonathan Bailey to an extent, are those performances going to be better than what they got nominated for. And Bailey, of course, didn't receive an Oscar, but he had SAG nomination and he was in the conversation most of the season. But for Erivo and Granda, it has to be better, different, because if it's the same or not better, I don't want to say worse, because I'm sure it'll be good, but you know what I mean, not as good, then they're not going to get nominated. So I do think, personally, that they are going to be better, because I know the musical. I've seen it on stage several times. Act 2 is a lot more layered, and these characters are vastly different than they are in the first film. They basically kind of switch roles almost. And Cynthia is much more of a sympathetic character in the second act of the movie. So I think she's going to get nominated, but I don't feel as strong about it as I want to. When it comes to Seyfried, her and Buckley are interchangeable for me. And I'll let you look at the 5 there. I'm so mad at myself, because I do think Buckley, if Hamnet hits at Venice this month, I'm putting her back in. I mean, I'm kind of mad that I took her out. I don't think there's room for both. So right now I'm playing that game where I'm just kind of flip-flopping them around. So now if Erivo misses, because Wicked for Good's not as well received, then you've got both. But right now, those 3 ladies, I think only 2 of those 3 can be in. And then looking at the 6 through 10 there, the aforementioned Jessie Buckley with the red arrow next to her name. I'm so pissed about that, but there she is. I also didn't move Emma Stone or Tessa Thompson. Now, Emma Stone's got the little asterisk next to her name because I don't know if that's going to be lead or supporting. And I don't think anybody's really said either way, because I've heard half of the people I follow say that she's lead and the other half say that she's supporting. So I've got her on the board in both spots. I've got her in the 10 for lead right now. If it is a lead performance, I think she's definitely a near miss in the 10. I already talked to you a little bit about Tessa Thompson and Jessie Buckley both in the kind of films that those are. Tessa Thompson has not received her accolades yet in terms of a nomination. Buckley has. But I think that Hedda being a previously nominated character and film, that Tessa Thompson could bring something new to that material that could make the Academy kind of perk up there. I just added Sydney Sweeney for the Christy Martin biopic, because I saw that one's going to be premiering at the festivals also, which I didn't even know if that was going to be coming out this year, which honestly it still might not. There's no date announced. I don't even think there's a title announced. I put Christy because I saw that was what was on the card for, I think, TIFF. But I think Sydney Sweeney with a film like Reality, and when she was in that horror film Immaculate last year, we see a depth to her characters that she's pulling out of this kind of like blonde bombshell persona that she has from Euphoria and the ad campaigns and all that stuff. She's digging deep, and she's showing us that she's something behind those blue eyes. You know what I mean? I'm seeing that, and I think she's a phenomenal actress, especially in those 2 projects I just mentioned. And she was also great on Euphoria as well, which of course is TV, but is very dramatic. And then Rose Byrne, I left at number 10 for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. I've heard so much great stuff about her performance coming out of, I think, South by Southwest, or maybe it was Sundance. And I just can't wait to see this movie. And it sounds a lot like the performance that Jennifer Lawrence is giving in Dime I Love, honestly. Kind of the tortured mother, postpartum. But it seems to be told from a kind of a therapeutic angle where she's meeting with her therapist, so I think it's played by Conan O'Brien, which I'm also very excited about. But I think Rose Byrne's one of those actresses that's so reliable and done so many different things that she's going to be so well respected that if she's in a project that brings that kind of notoriety with it, that they're probably going to at least want to nominate her. So I think we're looking at a situation where she's going to at least be in that 10 and be in the mix. I've got her right now at number 10. Moving right along, try to knock out these last few categories for you. Lead actors next. Not a lot of changes here. Top 3 in both categories stay the same. My top 3 are Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Jeremy Allen White as Springsteen in Deliver Me From Nowhere, and Leo in One Battle After Another. Yes, I'm leaving Leo on my 5. Same thing I said about One Battle and leaving that in my 10. A lot of people are going to see Leo on this and they're going to say I'm crazy, which I could be, you know what I mean? But I saw the trailers. There have been multiple trailers that have been released now. Test screening results. Leo's good. He's really, really good. And he's gotten nominated probably for performances that are probably lesser than this. This is a PTA movie that even if the film doesn't hit, like we were talking with box office and budget, maybe the performances in the screenplay are strong enough to be like, we can't deny these performers because the box office tanked or because Warner's didn't push it. And it's Leonardo DiCaprio. So he is a name that when he's attached to something, they pay attention to it. So he's working with a filmmaker like when he works with Scorsese or Tarantino. He's working with these filmmakers that are also always in the mix for the Academy. PTA? Oh, okay. Leo? Oh, okay. Oh, they're in the same thing? Oh, and it becomes a whole thing. They pay attention to those types of performers. I moved Michael B. Jordan up one spot. He was 5 last month. He's 4 this month. I think he's getting a nomination. I do. I think there's probably only going to be one performance to come over from that movie, even though you'll see in a second that I do have some folks in the mix for supporting. But I think as far as like what I feel the most confident in performance-wise would be Michael B. Jordan. He's playing the dual role, and Smoke and Stack are 2 completely different characters, sometimes in frame together, and you would never know that they're being played by the same person. I mean, you would just think they're twins because their personalities are so different. They're bouncing off of each other so effortlessly. Wagner Moura, I moved into my 5, and I dropped out Colin Farrell, who I had in my top 5 for a long time for Ballad of a Small Player. That could change based on the festival chatter. But I was telling myself there's going to be an international actor in the mix. And right now I think it only makes sense that it would be Wagner Moura, because in terms of other international actors for lead actor, I don't think there's any going to be in the mix. I mean, I don't know who's going to be in No Other Choice, if that's going to be in the mix for Park Chan-wook. But right now, I think he's the clear, obvious international actor that you could put into the lead actor category. And The Secret Agent was well received. He got the acting award at Cannes, which is a big deal. Then again, so did Jesse Plemons for Kinds of Kindness. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a wild card, I guess. But I just have confidence in Brazil and in that country pushing what they need to push to get notoriety. They did it, obviously, to tremendous effect last year with I'm Still Here. So I'm very confident in any time Brazil has something in the mix. And I think the film is going to be great. So we'll see how well it's received. But even if the movie is not tremendously received, but they really laud Wagner Moura's performance, and maybe he gets more accolades in terms of acting on the festival circuit, then who knows? And there you go, the 6 through 10. I mentioned Colin Farrell, Ballad of a Small Player. Same thing with George Clooney and Brendan Fraser, honestly. I mean, those 6, 7, and 8 right there, one of those could be number 5. In fact, all 3 of those could end up in the 5 in January, and I wouldn't be surprised. All those projects sound juicy enough for those actors. Brendan Fraser is the only one that's kind of moving up in the ranks for me. And I mentioned that earlier with Rental Family, and that being Searchlight's probably number 1 push, or maybe even only push. So for that reason, he just won for The Whale a couple years ago. If they push it, I mean, there's no limit to where that could go, especially with it having that kind of international appeal to it. I'm starting to gain love and confidence for Rental Family. So you'll start to see green arrows next to that one as we go through the coming weeks. Right now, I've got Brendan Fraser moving up from 9 to 8. And then rounding out my 10, Jesse Plemons for Begonia. I was so over the moon about his performance in that trailer. I think I recorded that video last month, like the day that trailer came out. I had just seen it. So I was a little dumb in my recency bias for that. I was in love with him in that trailer. He was just perfect. I do think he's going to be in the mix, but I dropped him down from 7 to 9. I kind of already said it. I think that Begonia, and I could be wrong, and we could wake up in Oscars morning, it could have 12 nominations. But as it looks like to me right now, I don't see Begonia as being that tech player for Lanthimos. Performance-wise, Emma Stone could be supporting as opposed to lead, so maybe she's not as front and center this award season. If it starts to miss a lot of that stuff, then maybe it doesn't get director. Of course, it wouldn't get picture as a sole nomination. So I don't know if Plemons is going to suffer as a result of the film just not getting a lot. And then I just premiered Oscar Isaac into the mix here. This is an actor that a few months ago I did a video for actors that I was surprised didn't have nominations yet. And Oscar Isaac is one of them, if for no other reason because his name is Oscar. I mean, think of all the press that they could do with that. But also, he's a great fucking actor. And, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, I think, is going to get a lot of technical awards, or at least nominations. I'm equating, and I've said this before, this could be at my detriment. But in my mind, I'm equating it to Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, where it's going to be well-loved, and it's going to be such a well-made movie that people are going to revere it. but it's going to be like, from like screenplay down, and that's kind of what happened, actually less really, to Robert Eggers. I mean, even Nightmare Alley, that wasn't like a huge embraced film, got several nominations. So I think when you start to look at performances, there's some supporting ones that could be in the mix. I'll talk about those in a second. But Oscar Isaac, I think, is the one, especially if you're looking at the trailer, that's like the movie. Like, he's the performance of the film. And I don't think anybody's refuted that to this point. So if there was like one performance, and I could only pick one from Frankenstein to get some notoriety this award season, it would be Oscar Isaac. I just shot him into my 10 there. The one that dropped out, just so you guys know, was Matthew McConaughey, who I had in for a long time from Zaya King. But with that not having a distributor, not showing up at any of these fall festivals, that's not coming. I don't even think that's probably going to come out this year. Supporting actress, there was a little bit of shakeup in this category, probably more than any of the other acting categories for me. I'm leaving Ariana Grande at number 1 because it's Ariana Grande. Wicked for Good. I mentioned this with Cynthia Erivo earlier. I'll just briefly tell you and then I'll move on. I think that she is going to be better, and she was phenomenal in Wicked Part 1, so I'm not talking down to her performance there. I just think this is going to be a better, more substantial performance from Ariana Grande. More of a kind of shift for that character. It's a paradigm shift for her. She's almost a villain in the second half of the musical, an antagonist at least, or an anti-hero kind of. So it's going to be different for her. It's not going to be the bubbly, comedic Glinda that we got in Part 1. It's going to be much, much darker, much more serious in tone, or at least that's the musical. Laura Dern for Jay Kelly and Tiana Taylor for One Battle both moved up a spot, so they're 2 and 3. I'm leaving a One Battle After Another supporting actress in my 5. Okay, I'm dying on that hill. I said the same thing with Leo, and I said the same thing with Picture. Now, when a movie comes out, and into October, really, because it's the end of September, so this will probably be the same commentary I have on my September video, but definitely by October, if that movie's out and it's bombing, and the reviews are not great, and, accolades here and there, but overall it's just not a well-loved, universally loved movie, I'll change my tune. I'll be the first one to say, well, I tried, PTA, sorry, it didn't work out. I was with you until October, it just didn't work out. That's probably where I'll be. But until I have definitive proof that it's not, I'm going to keep it in the major categories. And right now I've got Tiana Taylor as being the juiciest of those supporting roles. It's funny because Regina Hall and Chase Infinity, who's a young actress that has virtually no accolades so far, at least in film, are also in the mix. So really, I don't know. It could be any 3 of them or it could be none of them. Right now, I'm leaning towards Tiana Taylor. I think she should have been nominated for 1001 a couple years ago, and she did get some accolades on the indie circuit for that film. So her name is, around the water coolers in the Academy and the awards offices. Inga Lilialis. That's how I'm saying it. If it's wrong, I'm so sorry, because you look freaking phenomenal in this trailer, Inga. So sentimental value, last month when I did my predictions, I had not seen the trailer. The only thing I had seen was that early scene they released with her and when Stellan Skarsgård and Elle Fanning are showing up to the house. And then like a couple weeks later, the actual trailer came out, which had that scene in it, but a lot of other stuff. And Lily Alice, gosh, I'm just going to call her Inga because I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And that trailer seems like she has so much emotionality. And she's going through so much emotion of trying to be a bridge between her sister and her father. And you could tell she's much more of a sympathetic daughter to what her father apparently has done to the family and his life experience versus being there for his kids and being a filmmaker. And then you have Elle Fanning, who's going to be on my next slide. She's a near miss for me, who I also think is going to be great in the film. And I've been seeing great response to her performance as well. But much like I said with my previous category, I want to have an international player in the mix for a lot of these. I've got Wagner Moura in there for actor. So when it comes to supporting actress, my international kind of play is Inga. Jennifer Lopez for Kiss of the Spider-Woman, I'm leaving. Based on narrative. I mean, Ariana Grande versus Jennifer Lopez for supporting actress. Let's fucking go, dude. Yes, sir. So I think that I talked to my buddy Cody, who saw this, I think at Sundance, and he said that Jennifer Lopez, and a lot of people have said, it's just a singing performance. There's no like spoken dialogue, like lines being read where she's sharing a scene with somebody. It's all musical performance. But look at the Chicagos of the world. Look at even Emilia Perez from last year with the multiple nominations. Musicals and musical performances get nominated. In fact, back in the early days of the Academy Awards, like 30s, 40s, 50s, even into the 60s, I mean, there was like a musical or musical performance in the mix every single year. That was like usually like the heartbeat of the Academy Awards. I think the narrative at some point is going to help her, much like an Adam Sandler, get nominated. I think her time is coming. I've got her in my 5. Moving to the next slide, the only thing that would really move her, though, is if Gwyneth Paltrow ends up being in the nominees for Marty Supreme. I had her there for a long time, and I just finally took her out of my 5 to put Inga Lilialis. God, I hope I'm not saying that wrong this whole video. I do think Gwyneth Paltrow's return to the Oscars would be a big deal, especially since it was a little unfavorable in Oscars memory when you think back to movies like Shakespeare in Love and the Harvey Weinstein of it all and how that's kind of blemished it a little bit. She's still a great actress, and she's still a champion for cinema. So she could be in the 5. Elle Fanning could also be in the 5, and we could have 2 from Sentimental Value. That is a definite possibility. I don't think Io Adebri is as high on my radar as she was pre-trailer for After the Hunt. I think she looks great in it, but I think she also appears to be maybe like almost like a plot device for the other 2 actors to give these out boisterous performances. I'm talking about Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield, and even Michael Strahlberg to a certain extent. He's in my like top 15 or so right now for supporting also. It's going to be a very performance-heavy film. But really the main thing with Io, I love her. I've loved her as a stand-up comedian. I mean, 5 years ago, I used to watch her stand-up skits with Rachel Sennett on YouTube. I still do. They're fucking hilarious. But I just think that youth and being so new to at least prestigious cinema, that might hurt her in the end, because even actresses like Elle Fanning and Tiana Taylor have been in the mix for other conversations from other films in the past, whereas Io Adebri has really only been in the conversations awards-wise for The Bear, which is TV. So I could be wrong, and I would be thrilled if I was, because I love Io, but right now I've got her as a near miss. I did put Mari Yamamoto in my 10 from Rental Family. Another support for an international actor that I think will be in the mix in pretty much all of the acting categories if the film and or director are in the mix in their categories. I do have Rental Family at my 11, if you remember. I think it is very likely that could end up in my 10 or end up in the 10 when it ends up happening. And if that's the case, these names are going to be huge in rotation in terms of short lists and voting in the nominees from the Academy and other precursors as well. And Mari Yamamoto, from what I've read and the test screenings from it's been screened internationally, is that she is the performance aside from Brendan Fraser that kind of really stands out, her connection to his character, and obviously being, I think, a Japanese actress. So you have the international appeal there, which is what I'm going for. Moving on to supporting actor, this one did not get virtually no changes with the exception of one. So real quick, I'll just run through them. Stellan Skarsgård is my number 1 for Sentimental Value. I think he's looking like a sweeper, if I'm being honest with you. I could see him sweeping this season. Adam Sandler for Jay Kelly was my number 1 back in May, I think, until I saw that trailer that Skarsgård was in. I fear that he might be going the route of like a Jim Carrey, where they see him as a comedic actor, so they have problems like, transitioning over to like, oh, he can do this too. Now, of course, it's happened with actors like Tom Hanks. I mean, he's one of the most celebrated actors at the Academy. And before his nomination and win for Philadelphia, he was largely a comedic actor. So it obviously can happen. But see, Sandler's continuing to do that. I mean, Happy Gilmore 2 just came out. You know what I mean? Like a month or two before Jay Kelly. So I just worry about that. I hope that's not the case, but I do worry about that. And then I've got Jeremy Strong staying at my number 3 for Deliver Me From Nowhere, the Springsteen biopic. He looks really good as Springsteen's like manager, right-hand man in that movie. He was the one kind of giving the narration about, Springsteen having the hole in the floor and having to cover that up metaphorically and all that stuff. He's got the accent, he's got the look with the big glasses, the hair, the receding hairline, all that shit. Like, it's going to be a transformative performance physically for him. And he's on a bit of a run. And we were talking about Io with TV, so you could say that for Succession with Jeremy Strong. But he even got nominated for The Apprentice, which was really kind of an unsavory role and really an unsavory movie in terms of what the Academy would have gone for at that time. Jonathan Bailey, I kept at 5 for Wicked for Good. I'm in a holding pattern for Wicked for Good. I think it's going to receive a lot of the same nominations it got the first time around, and it might get nominations that it did not receive the first time around, which most notably would probably be Director, which we'll get to here in a second. It'll be my last slide, and Jonathan Bailey for Supporting Actor. Those two did not have support from the Academy last year for Part 1, so cumulatively will they have it for the 2 films. That happens sometimes in the Academy's mind. And then on top of that, if these performances are better, like I said, with Grande and with Arrivo, Jonathan Bailey, that character in the second half of the musical is much more prominent. I mean, he's almost a little more prominent than Galinda in the Part 2 of the musical, frankly. Elphaba in Part 2 of the musical, frankly. I feel good about Jonathan Bailey being in the 5. If not, he's definitely going to be a near miss and stronger of a contender than he was last year. Sean Penn is the new shakeup in the top 5. I saw him in the most recent trailer for One Battle. I know he's got some, weird shit in the public eye that he's been saying lately. It's a bit controversial, but he shows up. I mean, he's an actor that's like almost a legend at this point, honestly, in Hollywood and among the award circuit. And he doesn't really care about this shit, or at least he gives the impression that he doesn't, which a lot of times those types of actors will get nominated too, which is kind of annoying because they don't go to the show or whatever. But Sean Penn just looks so good in this movie. And much like I said with Tiana Taylor and with Leo, if the movie is a success and it gets nominations, it's going to get 7+. Or it's going to miss and it's not going to be a success and it's going to get like 2. One of which is probably screenplay. So obviously Penn's not in if that happens. But I'm dying on the hill, like I said, until probably October. And then I'll start to wane if it seems that what I'm hoping does not come to fruition. Right now, I think Sean Penn will be on the One Battle wave. So let's sit tight. I don't want to count that movie out before it has its due. And I think a lot of critical pundits, at least ones that do predictions, are putting it down for the count before it's out. And I don't like that because it's like we're setting it up to fail, or we're assuming it's going to fail. And I'm defending it to a certain extent because I've been on board with it. So if it doesn't hit, I won't have problems sleeping at night as a PTA fan. I don't know about you guys. I left Andrew Garfield and Robert Pattinson at my 6 and 7 for After the Hunt and Die My Love, respectively. After the Hunt, Garfield looks great. He could be swapped out for Bailey or for Penn. Very easily could happen. I think After the Hunt, as I've already said in the other categories, is going to be a performance-heavy film. I don't see it get nominated for really anything else. Maybe screenplay, but aside from that, I think it's just performances. And Garfield is definitely one of the ones to keep your eye on there for supporting. Pattinson, I'm going on the feedback that I got from his performance from Cannes, from the folks at Cannes, and that he was not as good as Jennifer Lawrence, but really good. And he is an actor that is continually putting in the work. I mean, even Mickey 17 this year was, in my opinion, Oscar worthy. The film will not be received as an Oscar film, but if it were, he would be in the mix for lead actor. That's how good he is. And then you have the two Sinners actors that I don't think are going to receive a nomination, but I think they're going to be floating around in the near misses, like 6 to 10, all season, because that movie is going to continue to be in the conversation all the way through to January and then on to the award show in March. I just think that Sinners is the movie that everybody's seen multiple times at this point, and that is so well received, so well loved, and a big part of that is the performances, the music therein, and the story around the music, and the importance of that in the story. Delroy Lindo's character and Miles Caton as Sammy, those are the two characters that really carry that music narrative, and not necessarily the vampire stuff and the supernatural, but definitely the heart of that film, which is the love around blues in that film. And then there you see the international support that I'm giving to pretty much every major category. Now, I did have Stellan Skarsgård as my number 1, so that technically is international support also. But then you have Takehiro Hira, which is the male supporting performance in Rental Family that is playing off of Brendan Fraser. And I think that that's another actor that is going to come with the wave for that film if it continues to go up and up and up. Rental Family is going to be a really interesting case study, honestly, because the conversation for that film just hit in the last couple weeks, and then it's going to have its awards festival run. Searchlight is doing what I think they're doing. It's hitting right now with different articles, test screenings, and then guess what? 3 weeks from now, bam, it's at a film festival. It wins audience award, let's just say, which, by the way, this speaks to what would win an audience award. And then Venice, bam, Golden Lion or whatever. I mean, it's like we could be like, holy shit, Rental Family, and it could be everybody's number 1 by November. Remember, I said that. Now, I'm not as confident right now because we don't have any of that hypothetical stuff I just said. But I do see a path for that happening based on the subject matter of the film. And then last but not least, I'll just run through these real quick. I've already talked about all these films, but that would be for Best Director. Ryan Coogler is not only my number 1 in the power rankings here, I think he's your winner for Best Director. And that's really regardless of what happens with anything else. I honestly think he could just win Best Director. I really do. I think he could win that, maybe original screenplay, and that's it. Is that likely? No, but that's how confident I feel that he would win director, or that the director's branch would give him that award. He's an auteur and he's a genre filmmaker. He's both. And he's brought so much success not only to the box office with the Black Panther films, but to the Academy and to the art of cinema. Joachim Trier and Jafar Panahi, I moved up. Those are both Neon films. I moved them up a spot each. And you know why? Because I had to move down PTA because I'm just not nearly as confident as I was one day. I do still have PTA in the 5. Again, just like everything else, all these One Battle that I have in their respective fields being nominated could end up being nowhere come October. But probably not until October because I'm on that hill with that movie. I'm carrying the flag for that film, and I don't want to give up on it until it's obvious. And then Chloe Zhao would round out my 5 for Hamnet. She's been there for a couple months now. I think she's going to be the female representation this year, and I do hope we have at least one, hopefully more would be great, female directors. But the only problem is that when we go to my next slide here, there's just not a lot of other females in the mix this year. I mean, with films that we're calling out in these major categories. Mona Fastful would probably be the most obvious runner-up, maybe Lynn Ramsey, but she never gets nominated from the Academy, so Mona Fastful would maybe be the other option for Ann Lee. But right now I don't have her in the 10. I've got Chloe Zhao, a previous winner, at my 5 there. And then you see nothing really change on this last slide with the exception of the last spot there, but I'll just go through them real quick. Edward Berger, Ballad of a Small Player, is going to be number 6 for the 3rd year in a row. What the hell is wrong with me? Edward Berger, if you're watching this, I am so sorry. I do not know why these dudes have not nominated you yet. It's crazy. Luca Guadagnino, I talked about already. I just don't see the Academy embracing him yet. You know, if they have reason to and their hands almost forced to with what happens on the festivals with After the Hunt, then maybe. But if they didn't nominate Challengers, which was kind of like a hip love triangle centered around sports, nothing's telling me they're going to do it for After the Hunt, which is a love triangle with like a college scandal at the core. I don't know. It just sounds weird to me. And then I talked to you guys already about John M. Chu and Guillermo del Toro. You know, GDT is always in the conversation for Best Director. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anytime, I mentioned Nightmare Alley before, obviously Pinocchio a couple years ago from the animated branch. Anytime del Toro has a film, really ever, I mean, it doesn't matter what, the Academy is going to take notice, and his name is going to be on documents in the Academy during award season. So he's in the mix for Frankenstein. And then last but not least, I just put in Noah Baumbach for Jay Kelly. Lynn Ramsey was the director that dropped out there, by the way, of my 10. She dropped down to like my 14 or 15. So, you know, kind of like what I said with Marriage Story, Noah Baumbach, I think he needs a screenplay win. I think that the screenplay win could come for Jay Kelly. The trailer's coming out tomorrow as I'm sitting here, so by the time I see this and get this video edited, I might sound like an idiot, but I think that it's going to be a Marriage Story, Noah Baumbach, and not, you know, White Noise or anything crazy like that. So I feel good about it. I know he's well respected. Obviously, Greta Gerwig's partner, she's well respected. I think she's in this film as an actress. So yeah, with these performances and with this material that Baumbach excels in, not just Marriage Story, but like Meyerowitz Stories, you know, he excels in that like family awkwardness, kind of like drama, you know, with a little bit of awkward humor in it. And I think that's what we're going to get with Jay Kelly, with performances that'll be undeniable. So I've got Noah Baumbach in the 10 for the first time this season. We'll see if he stays there, if he goes up, or if he ends up dropping out for somebody else. But right now, that's where I'm sitting for my Best Director nominations. Man, I talked way too much. I'm hoarse. That was a lot of talking. These will be up on my website, by the way, and sometimes I do update those prior to doing the video, but I'm only doing the video once a month right now. Like I said, until we get into November, probably it'll be a little more frequently, and then eventually it'll be the only thing I'm doing on my freaking channel for a few months. Am I off? Who did I leave off that should definitely be in my predictions? Please let me know, because believe it or not, when I do my brainstorming sessions, I often dive into your comments to kind of see what the feeling of the general public is out there, or the critical community, if you guys happen to be in that space. Just kind of be like, oh, okay, I didn't think of that. Or there was actually a couple on this video that I got from viewer comments that I ended up kind of putting into the mix after I kind of reflected on what was said in this comment section. And again, don't forget to subscribe if you like award season or just movies in general, because even when award season's over, I just talk about movies out here in the garage while I'm drinking beer, usually all day, all night. So if you like that, please subscribe and help me get over 5K by the end of this year. Let me know what you thought of these predictions, guys, and I will see you out here next time in the garage.